He'd heard it 100 times. Never give away food. It's not our job to feed the street. But that night, as the diner lights dimmed and leftovers hit the bin, a barefoot girl stood at the door, eyes sunken, silent, hollow with hunger. Daniel looked at her and broke the rule. One sandwich, one act of quiet defiance. The next day, a man in a tailored suit walked in, sat down, and asked for him, by name. What would you risk to feed a stranger? Stick around. You won't believe how it ends. Let us know where you're watching from, and please like, share, and subscribe to support stories that matter. Daniel wasn't just a waiter. He was a quiet fixture at the edge of the diner's noise, refilling coffee, clearing plates, always polite, never seen. But what no one knew was that he'd been forgotten long before he wore an apron. Raised in the foster system, Daniel moved from house to house like borrowed furniture. Some places were kind, most weren't, none lasted. He learned early that hunger didn't always live in the stomach. It lived in the silence when no one says your name. In birthdays missed. In promises broken. He was 13 the first time he stole food. Not for himself, but for a younger boy in his group home who hadn't eaten all day. He got caught, punished, branded a thief. Since then, Daniel followed the rules. Every one of them. He kept his head down, showed up early, never complained, even when life felt like one long gray hallway. But the night that girl appeared at the diner door, thin, wordless, invisible, Daniel felt something pull at him. Not pity, recognition. He had lived her silence. He had worn those eyes. And for the first time in years, he did something he wasn't supposed to. He cared. Out loud. It was 11:52 p.m. The last booth emptied, the chairs flipped, and the scent of burnt oil and bleach began to fill the air. Daniel moved like muscle memory, cleaning the counter, stacking the plates, nodding at his coworker who was scraping leftovers into the bin. The hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed above him like a clock ticking down. Closing time, just like every other night. And then, the bell over the front door chimed. A soft, brittle sound that cut through the routine. She didn't belong there. Not at that hour. Not in that condition. A girl, maybe 7, maybe 10, it was hard to tell, stood just inside the doorway. Barefoot, hair tangled in knots, clothes thin as paper and clinging to her frame. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just stood there, shivering, staring, and the way she looked at Daniel, not like he could help her, but like he was the last human on earth who might even try. For a moment, no one moved. Then the manager barked from behind the counter. "Kitchen's closed, kid. Out!" The girl didn't move. Daniel's chest tightened. His hands twitched. He looked over at the trash bin, where half a burger and untouched fries sat in a paper boat, still warm. Food that would be thrown away in minutes. His body moved before his thoughts could catch up. He walked behind the counter, grabbed a to-go box, filled it with what he could. Chicken tenders, mashed potatoes, a dinner roll, and wrapped it tight. No ceremony, no permission, just instinct. He walked out the side door and met her around the corner, away from the windows. He knelt, handed it to her, and for the first time, she looked him directly in the eyes. Not like a child, like a mirror. She took the food without a word, turned and vanished into the night. No thank you. No name. Just gone. Daniel stepped back inside. He didn't notice the manager standing there. "I saw that." Daniel froze. The voice was flat, final. "One warning," the manager said, stepping closer. "You do that again, you're done." He pointed at the trash. "That food doesn't go out. Not to her, not to anyone. We have rules for a reason." No argument, no second chance. Just a line in the sand. Daniel nodded, slowly. But inside him, something cracked. A quiet rebellion lit behind his ribs. Not loud, not brave, but dangerous. Because once you see someone starving, you can't unsee it. That night, Daniel barely slept. He lay on the worn mattress in his studio apartment, staring at the ceiling fan as it ticked in slow, uneven rotations, like a clock with a limp. The city outside was alive. Sirens, horns, drunken laughter echoing off brick walls. But inside, everything was still, except his mind. He replayed the moment over and over. Her eyes, the weight of the food in his hands, the silence as she vanished into darkness, and the voice, his manager's voice, low, sharp, and final. "Do it again. You're done." This job wasn't just a job. It was the only thing he had that stayed. No foster homes, no shelters, no food lines. Just a paycheck, a key, a place to belong, even if no one said it out loud. But now, it felt like a choice was coming. Keep his place in the world, or step outside it, just for her. The next night, Daniel didn't wait. He clocked out, washed his hands, and instead of going home, he slipped back into the kitchen. His heart pounded like he was stealing fire. He wrapped a biscuit in foil, tucked some scrambled eggs into a box, added an orange juice he'd bought himself. He left it behind the dumpster, where the alley met the shadows. He didn't see her, but in the morning it was gone. So he did it again, and again. Each night, a little more. Each time looking over his shoulder, jumping at every sound. The guilt twisted in him, tight as barbed wire. Not because of what he was doing, but because he knew he would keep doing it, even if it cost him everything. The fear grew louder. One night, he heard footsteps behind him. He froze, hand still on the box. But it was just a stray cat, skittish, thin, just as hungry. He laughed under his breath, a sharp, broken sound, because he knew what that cat was feeling too. Every shift at the diner became a performance, smiling, refilling drinks, pretending not to hear the whispers. The manager started watching him longer, standing behind him a few seconds too long, asking questions that didn't need answers. Daniel's hands started to tremble when he'd tie an apron string. He spilled coffee. He dropped a glass. He made mistakes. The fear of being caught burned in his chest. But worse than that was the fear of stopping, because he didn't know what would happen to her if he did. And somehow, that mattered more. He started staying later, pretending to clean the walk-in freezer. Sometimes she wouldn't come, and the food would be gone anyway, by morning, like magic or fate. Sometimes he thought about writing her a note, asking her name. But something told him she didn't want to be found. She just wanted to be fed. One night, He opened the back door and paused. She wasn't there. But someone was. A man in a hoodie, hands in his pockets, standing just past the alley's edge, watching. Daniel didn't speak. Neither did the man. He closed the door and locked it. And suddenly, the question wasn't just if he'd lose his job. It was when, and what else he'd lose after that. The diner was unusually quiet that morning. Rain tapped against the windows in slow, steady rhythms. The regulars weren't in yet. The air smelled like wet pavement and reheated bacon. Daniel moved through the motions, his apron damp from a spill he hadn't cleaned. His eyes were distant, sleep-deprived, watching the clock like it owed him answers. And then the door opened. Not the usual push from a local or the nervous energy of someone dodging the rain. This was deliberate, measured. A man stepped in, and the room seemed to still around him. He wore a dark tailored suit, no umbrella, no jacket, just a faint line of water soaking the hem of his pants, as if the storm had followed him in. He didn't sit at the counter or glance at the menu. He chose a booth in the far corner, one Daniel rarely served. Daniel watched him out of the corner of his eye as he poured coffee. Something about the man was wrong, not dangerous, not hostile, but out of place, like he belonged in a boardroom, not a greasy spoon with flickering lights. Then the man raised a finger, just one, summoning. Daniel walked over, pen and pad in hand. "You, Daniel?" The voice was calm, weighted, almost tired. Daniel nodded. The man didn't look up at first. He placed a photograph on the table, face down, slid it toward him. "She said you saved her life." Daniel looked down. It was her, cleaned up, in different clothes, her eyes still wide, but no longer hollow. He felt something hit his chest. Not panic, not pride, just gravity. The man exhaled. "She called you the man with kind eyes, said you didn't ask questions, didn't make her feel like a problem." A pause. "She said you were her angel." Daniel sat down without asking. The man looked older now, like the sentence had taken years off his life. "She's my daughter," he said. "Sophie." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a worn legal document, folded so many times it had creases like a map. A custody battle. Her mother disappeared with her months ago. We had people searching everywhere, private investigators, tech, facial recognition. Nothing. He looked at Daniel for the first time. "She slipped through every net we had, but somehow she found you." The words hung there like smoke. Daniel couldn't speak. His mouth was dry. His heartbeat was in his throat. "I came to say thank you," the man continued, "not just for the food, for giving her hope, for seeing her when no one else did." He slid something across the table, an envelope. Daniel didn't touch it. The man stood slowly, placed a business card beside the photo, and left without finishing his coffee. Daniel sat there for a long time, staring at the table. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun hadn't come out. But somehow, the light had changed. The next morning, the envelope still sat untouched on Daniel's kitchen table. He hadn't opened it. He didn't need to. It wasn't about the money. Not anymore. Maybe it never had been. Later that week, the man in the suit returned. Not to eat, not to talk. To offer something. A job. Not in a diner. Not behind a counter. But as the director of a new foundation, one built to serve kids just like Sophie, children falling between cracks, too narrow to see, but too deep to climb out of alone. He told me, Daniel would say later, that all his tech couldn't find her, but kindness did. The papers were signed. The story went public. Local news called it the waiter who said yes. The photo of Daniel shaking the CEO's hand made it to the front page of the city paper. There were headlines, hashtags, praise, and somewhere in the noise, the diner owner heard. He released a statement, apologized, donated 3 months of unsold meals to the foundation. He even offered Daniel his job back, said he could train the new hires on empathy. Daniel declined. He hadn't stopped working, but his work had changed. Meetings, planning, logistics, feeding hundreds now, sometimes thousands. But at night, when the city softened, and the office lights went out, and the boardrooms fell silent, Daniel still went back, to the alley, to that spot behind the dumpster. Not every night, but often enough. He never saw her again. And maybe that was the point. He'd leave something simple, half a sandwich, a sealed bottle of water, a note that said, "This is for you. You matter." Sometimes it would be gone by morning, sometimes not. But he left it anyway, because he remembered what it was like to be invisible, to wonder if you were worth the effort, and because he knew someone always was. The ripple of that one moment of saying yes when the world said no. It didn't stop with a job offer or a photo or applause. It echoed, not through headlines, but through hunger, eased, eyes softened, souls unforgotten. And though Daniel never said it out loud, never needed to, those who watched him knew the truth. Sometimes breaking the rules isn't about rebellion. It's about remembering you're still human. Compassion is instinctive. Rules are constructed. Daniel's world, like ours, is governed by structure, policies, boundaries, procedures designed to maintain order, protect profit, reduce liability. But compassion? It disrupts that. It's messy, illogical, risky. So when Daniel breaks a rule, it's not just an act of kindness. It's an act of rebellion against a system that says, follow protocol over follow your heart. Compassion is instinctive. Rules are constructed. Daniel's world, like ours, is governed by structure, policies, boundaries, procedures designed to maintain order, protect profit, reduce liability. But compassion? It disrupts that. It's messy, illogical, risky. So when Daniel breaks a rule, it's not just an act of kindness. It's an act of rebellion against a system that says follow protocol over follow your heart. He doesn't do it because it's smart. He does it because it's right. And that's what makes him dangerous, in the best way. Most of us are taught to pick safety over risk, policy over empathy. Would you have done what Daniel did? And if not, why? Is compassion only acceptable when it's convenient? Or is it meant to cost something, to prove it's real? Daniel's actions ask a subtle but seismic question. What if being human means breaking the rules when the rules break people? If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because compassion deserves to be seen, and stories like this deserve to be heard.